I will. I was thinking this morning of just how incredibly important it is that we are committed to finding a way to have safe and secure shelter for everyone. And we have a number of goals that we're working toward that are taking a lot of energy. And I just want to share my personal appreciation for the commitment that everybody who's here has, whatever way we're doing that. And usually what I do when I welcome everyone here is remind us all of the norms that we agreed to for the way we conduct ourselves. And so I'll do that briefly. And we do ask that people who wish to speak use the raise hand feature on the Zoom program. It's in different places for different folks, so I can't really say where yours is, but that way Rob can see when you're wanting to say something and be able to recognize people more easily than having hands that are in person hands. So to do that, and then also to keep ourselves muted when we're not speaking. Background noise is distracting, and as well, if we need to do something else during this meeting, which is a long meeting, to also stop the video briefly at least, so we're not distracting others by our own activities. And then, Rob, I have the meeting norms I could post if you don't have them up yet, but one of the things I wanted to just focus on today in terms of community norms is we agreed to lead with racial equity. And for all of us, in terms of knowing what our behavior is, that can be hard to know exactly what we mean as a norm. But I'd like to suggest that we at least pay attention today, and always, but pay attention today about who is at the table, our open table that we've invited everyone to, who should be here, who isn't here, who might we invite, how might we speak about the work in ways that recognize the disparate experiences that people in our community have had because of their racial or ethnic background and experience, so that our plans and our programs and our efforts can really be an understanding and a collaborative effort with others with whom we should be partnering if we haven't yet, and how we might grow as a community. So I really welcome us to think about that today. And then the last thing, and the most important thing really, is to invite any of you who are new today or who have been a couple times but not introduced yourself, to just let us know who you are, and if you're part of a group or organization, to identify that one, but not to take long time to describe it. We often hope to provide opportunities for groups to present their organization as a little program in our meeting. We have the chat that we've encouraged people to use to put in events that are coming up, resources people may want or have, and more information about your group if you'd like. There's also a lot of information on the PC Homeless webpage. If you haven't explored that, I really encourage you to look there for lots of information as well. So let me invite new folks or returning folks to say who you are and welcome the day.
I'm Brenda Aninga with Vallejo Vocations. I'm the BFEC case manager.
Brenda, welcome. We heard about you and we're glad to have you here. Thank you for coming. Well, maybe we're welcome you, Brenda, new person today. And if there are others who are coming in a little later and didn't hear my introduction, we just welcome you all here and look forward to all the stuff we're going to be doing for our meeting. So Rob, I'll give it to you.
Sure. Thank you, Rosemary. And if anybody else does join us and wants to just leave their contact information and a brief intro in the chat, we do use the chat as an ongoing resource. So anything that you think would be useful, it's always good to put it in the chat. So let's move to our first item on the agenda this week. And as with every week, we open with a This Week on the Streets section of the meeting. This is an open part of the meeting to just share what you are seeing, what has changed on the streets, if you're out doing outreach, and working with those who are currently homeless directly. I believe we do have some updates today, and later today, I think we're going to have actually some live streamed update from Colin DeForest. But we can get started just with on the streets. So anybody have anything to share, just raise your hand and I will reach out to you. I see Kevin putting his hand up right now.
Morning. Thanks, Rob. Been doing some outreach to the vaccine sites. I was just down this morning at CLR. They're doing a Johnson & Johnson site. So what we're providing is hygiene packs, which include socks, a mask, hand sanitizer, toothpaste, toothbrush, a couple other things, some snacks and water, and then phone chargers. And the phone chargers are small, portable, and they have a message on it about don't throw away your shot, and then information on how to contact the health department. I was over at, so been at several sites this week. Was talking to Jenny from the health department. Particularly, folks really love the phone charger, so shout out to Garrett. That was his idea. Those are really well received, and yeah, and there's 4 more sites next week. Also got some out to Paula Anderson to do outreach with out in Puyallup, and I'm connecting with someone from CLR next week to give them some for their outreach teams as well. So, and I'm going to leave about 9:45 because I have to take my daughter to get her second shot. So that's my vaccine outreach for the family as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Jeffrey, I see your hand up.
Good morning, everyone. As you know, there is a sweep going on this morning on G Street between 13th and 15th. I was out there for a couple of hours yesterday with Colin DeForest and a member of the Tacoma News Tribune staff. Some of the disappointing aspects of that was most were not offered a shelter. They just said, get the hell out of here. And this is what was told to me by at least 6 different individuals there. One person was offered a tiny house, but there were no openings at the tiny house. Most have said, actually all of them had said they were only going to move a block or 2 and that they were staying in the neighborhood. This was reported yesterday at a meeting that involved over camping ban. The mayor was there, the deputy mayor was there, the city attorney, and Councilman Toms, and I reported this to them also. These are citizens of our city. These aren't people coming in from outside. We need to take better care of our people. And I was very disappointed in the city's response yesterday.
Thank you for that update, Jeffrey. Teresa, I see your hand up.
Just to add on to that, I think one of the problems may be that this is my street that you're talking about. I live right on the block that Jeffrey is describing. And we have street repair, they're repaving all the streets. And they've started with the hilltop area, at least that's one of their starting points. And that was in response somewhat to equity about how things get repaired. So there was a good intent in that. My question is, I wonder, perhaps we should respond to the city and say, these work crews who may be the ones telling people they need to go, need to be accompanied by somebody who is doing outreach. So it might not be so much that the city's policy has changed about whether or not they offer things to people. It may be the department that's dealing with it. So just to give a little possibility that it's not wrong turn that they're taking as much as a gap that didn't get filled. So we are happy to have our street repaved, but not happy that people don't have another place to go.
Thank you, Teresa. And you may be onto something. I would imagine Public Works staff would not have the best message to share. Maureen. And you're muted.
I got it.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So a couple things. One is in our meetings with the city around the use of public property ordinance, the mayor has been really clear that we're talking policy with the council and the mayor, not and she draws a really hard line about not getting into any kind of city operations or staffing, anything like that. So that's just really important for everybody to remember. And also, I think I reported last week, no, it wasn't. I reported the steering committee. Allison Griffith did, the deputy in neighborhood and community services, reached out to me Tuesday or Monday night, I guess, to tell me that the city was planning these two, well, I'm just going to call them sweeps. The one at 13th and Alzheimer, she said because there had been fires and tents had been destroyed, and the one on the block, 2 blocks, 13th to 15th on G Street because of the coming road work. And that city staff had been out speaking with people. I'm just reporting what she told me, all right? I can see Jeffrey. And that city staff had been out. I did not ask her whom. They had spoken to people. I asked her how many and told them that this was coming Friday morning. I did not, I asked her how many beds were available. She said there were 2 at the stability site and there was something at Bethlehem. I said that those, she said people had refused what was available. I said, oftentimes the issue is eligibility, and certain programs run with very tight eligibility, which is their right, as long as, you know, they're not breaking any laws kind of stuff. And so that would, I thanked her for reaching out and pass that word along to folks. So that's just another piece in there. I didn't ask which staff went out. When Clarissa reports later, maybe she can address that. I don't know. But, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen. And I see Kristen with her hand up.
Thanks, Rob. Hi, everyone. I think the only representative from Neighborhood and Community Services on the call. I don't think Clarissa is on the call yet. So I just wanted to jump in on this and say that our homeless outreach team has been doing outreach to those sites regularly and giving folks some heads up of what's to come, especially with the street repair. I know the community there has generally been pretty supportive of the folks that are living outdoors there. And it's an ongoing challenge. And one of the things that came up this week, actually, I believe it was James, you had said, hey, we haven't been in the loop so much about the cleanups and how do we improve that. And so if there are folks that are feeling like they're not getting enough notice from us, that there's opportunity to improve there. So I think you could probably put in the chat, you know, or we could talk about it now, the best way to notify you folks about things like that as they're happening, because to Maureen's point, we're hearing different information from folks on the street, and that might be the message, that might be because of the messenger, among other factors. So I just wanted to offer that and let folks know that I'm hearing what you're saying, and we'll work on improving those communications.
Thank you, Kristen. And if you would put your contact information in the chat, that might be a good way for folks to reach out to you as well. Jenny, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add to this conversation that the CTI team is actually going to start partnering with the REACH outreach team. So we're going to start sending our navigators out with them on Wednesdays. and they focus on the Hilltop area. So we're going to start going out and seeing how we can support those teams and provide our services to this group of folks. So certainly any of you that are working in that area or any other area, if the CTI team can support at all, just give me a shout and I am happy to partner you with our navigators, because we're going to start going out and working with the outreach teams for further support.
Thank you, Jenny. All right, so let's move on to the next portion of our agenda. If you have any other updates about on the streets, please feel free to drop them in the chat. So I'm going to cue this up. We talked during the planning meeting after last week's meeting about having a discussion to help kind of inform the Pierce County's effort to create a regional plan to end homelessness, and especially to end street homelessness by November 1st. So Garrett, do you want to address this?
Sure. I'm going to start with the caveat that I don't remember that discussion. But,
I can help fill in.
But so I think what we're going to focus this conversation on is, what are all the things we need to be thinking about when we're talking about ending street homelessness, which is really all about creating shelter options for people. And so when we're talking about this, we're talking about doing a lot more shelter across the county. And again, what do we need to be worried about? And this can be things as simple as, how should we be designing the sites? Should they be tiny houses? Should they be safe parking? Should there be a mix? Should we do safe encampments? To things like, how do we inform our decisions better by engaging with people experiencing homelessness, right? What are some ways we can do that to really get at the needs people have? And so it's a really broad request. I'm going to stick in chat right now some things I think we need to work on. And I'm asking you to think about, how could we do those things? And what more do we need to think about working on, right? So one of the things we need to work on is community support for more shelter, right? In other words, there's a lot of things that are going to go into our successes or our failures in doing this work, right? The city recently tried to find a site for establishing safe encampments and sort of failed at being able to find a site that had enough community support and all of the other things that they needed, right? So those aren't the city not doing it right. Those are real challenges that we're running into in our community in terms of support. And so this isn't an attempt to blame people for not doing things right. It's that this is really, really hard. And so all of us together, I think, can make this work out right by knowing the needs, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I stuck that stuff in chat, and hopefully that'll appear in our breakout groups. And really, it's, what do we need to work on? And you can think about how to prioritize it. Like, what's the most important thing? You can think about, what's the county not going to be thinking about that we need to make sure gets on the list? Like, how you focus your discussion really depends on who's in the group and what you're thinking about in that arena, or maybe even what your expertise is in that particular area, right? From being a neighbor to people, right, in Pierce County and thinking about how they would want a shelter in their community, to being someone that works directly with people experiencing homelessness and having a sense of how we can engage them much more effectively maybe than we have in the past, or just more of it. So is that enough kickoff there? And we're going to do report out like we always do, which is in the chat afterwards, which is really, someone's got to kind of be writing down what you guys talked about, so you can just drop it in the chat so we have it and can really compile all the things that you guys are bringing forward. How's that, Rob?
That's awesome. So what I will do is I'm going to shuffle everybody into randomly assigned breakout rooms. We'll have about 10 rooms, so about 5 people in each room. And why don't we spend the next 15 minutes kind of brainstorming and talking about what should be prioritized along the lines of Garrett's list. What we're going to do that's a little bit different is after you report out in the chat today, we're actually going to try to, during the meeting, compile on the fly some commonalities that we see in what the different groups report in the chat. And we'll have a poll at the end of today's meeting so we can further prioritize what's been raised during this chat conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get us sent off to rooms, and we will spend about 15 minutes talking about this issue. I will cut and paste Garrett's list into the broadcast to the rooms. So here we go. Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully that was a good conversation. Did you feel like you were cut off too soon?
Well, yeah, we could have kept going, but that was good.
Good, good. Yeah, it's always hard to get the right amount of time for these breakout rooms. So if you could paste your notes from the breakout room reflecting the conversation into the chat, then Garrett's going to do some magic in the background while we continue through the meeting, and we will have a poll at the end of the meeting to kind of prioritize what we see as the main items that come up. So thank you very much for that time. I hope it was rewarding. Speaking of rewarding time, we will now move on in the agenda, and I will ask Michael Yoder from Associated Ministries to give us an update. We thought it'd be a good idea to hear about the upcoming Homeless Connect event and the details there, as well as just especially for folks who are new or newish, to hear what Associated Ministries is doing in the community right now. So Michael, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. Would you like me to truncate this a bit since we're behind, Rob?
Feel free to make it as long as you need to.
That's very
I'll
dangerous.
wave my arms if you're getting too.
I'll be watching for you, so please
Okay.
do. So good morning, everyone. Mike Yoder, ED for about the last 6 years at Associated Ministries, and I've been showing up in this space for much of the last year, and trying to be quiet because I know this this space is really originally designed more for the frontline workers and providers, and I am always so informed and inspired by everything that you guys do, and happy just to be here to offer moral support. And today to talk a little bit about our Project Homeless Connect events, as I was asked to do. And that's really important that this community, those of you in this space today, know more about this event. And perhaps we've been remiss in not getting the word out through the provider community about what we're doing, because we really would like to invite you to be a part of what we're doing, and to hopefully make connections to people needing your services. That's the goal of Project Homeless Connect. We've been doing this for about 3 years now, officially, through a contract with the county that provides a tiny little bit of resources. We have to go out and raise triple that amount from private sources to actually put these on. But the county gives us the official mantle of authority to run our community's official homeless resource fairs, which we call Project Homeless Connect. And so Human Services gives us that little contract to do that. And we put on 3 events each year. We've done it for the past 3 years. Sound Outreach has put these events on here in Pierce County for, I think, a decade or more before that. So this is a long-standing service that has happened in this community through different providers. And we've been thrilled to be able to do it in the last 3 years. Obviously, it's looked quite different in the past year. We haven't been able to convene hundreds of people in a gymnasium or other space to do the resource fairs as we normally would do them during COVID. So we have been keeping things going, getting resources out and about into the community by gathering volunteers together safely to put together resource bags, very, very robust bags of resources with masks and socks and hygiene supplies, plus all kinds of information about services and how to contact and connect to services. We've produced over 2,000 of those bags and given them to frontline service providers, people who meet and connect with those experiencing homelessness all over Pierce County. So in a sense, during COVID, because of this this resource bag creation and distribution opportunity, we've actually gotten resources and information about services that would benefit those experiencing. We've gotten them actually farther out into the community than we normally would by having all of those people experiencing homelessness come to us in a centralized event. So sometimes you pivot and it has another beneficial effect in a backward sort of a way. All that to say is we are doing another bag packing event on June 11th. So coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll be creating 600 to 800 very robust bags. And if your agency serves people experiencing homelessness and you would like to receive a supply of these bags to provide, we will provide them to you free of charge. If you will make sure they get into the hands of people experiencing homelessness, we'd love to drop a supply off to you, especially if you serve a part of the county that's a little bit outside the norm. We've been excited to find some people to help us get some supplies out on Key Peninsula and farther out into Eatonville and Graham, places that we haven't always gone. So we're trying to make sure we distribute these bags equitably all over the county. So if you're another agency in downtown Tacoma, we might have to say no, but give us a ring. So send a request to Michelle C at associateministries.org. I'll put the emails in the chat at the end. It's Michelle with 1L C at associateministries.org, and she can arrange some bags to get to you after we build them on June 11th. But the good news is that we've made initial plans to have our first reconvened live event. So we are starting work to put together for the first time in more than a year, a live Homeless Connect event on September 17 in People's Park. So we're going to do it right in the heart of the action. We've already reserved People's Park for that day. I hope to have at least 30 to 40 homeless service providers. We're looking to get the Medical Society to come for their screenings, the dental van, all of the services that are in most demand. But we'd love to have any of you who would like to come and set up a table and make connections with, we hope, 300 to 600 people experiencing homelessness, who we will do our best to draw to that event that day. And we do that by offering lots of free giveaways, a free lunch. We provide free van transportation from all over the county to try to get as many people to come that one day to that one location. And that'll be on Friday, September 17 in People's Park. So we've just got the park confirmed this week. So we're just beginning the work to start confirming participants. If you would like to have a table and be there that day to provide outreach and your services to people that we will draw to the park that day, send an email to our event coordinator, and I'll put her email in the chat as well. That's Aisha A at associateministries.org. She does the vendor signups. So that's the basics for Project Homeless Connect, a bag packing event coming up, and you can receive those bags to be a distribution point. And so let us know if you'd like some of those kits, those resource kits that we build, and or if you'd like to participate on the September 17th event. So I'll put those in after I'm done talking, and please email us if you would like to participate in that. But the regular rhythm is a Project Homeless Connect event takes place on point in time count day. There wasn't a point in time count, like there wasn't a lot of things in the last year, so that got messed up. But I'm assuming we will be back on track to do an event again in January on point in time count day. And then we usually do one just before summer, and then in the fall, as we're heading into the winter, we usually do an event as well to get resources like socks and gloves and things out to people. It seems like a good time of year to do one. So that's the normal rhythm of our 3 annual resource fairs that we call Homeless Connect. So you can check that out on our website, associatedeministries.org. We have tabs for all of the different programs that we operate, including that, which will have details as they become available. And I just want to quickly say, if you look on that site, you'll see a whole bunch of other things that we do, and I'll just name them off. And you can go online and check them out, or contact me if you want to know more. First, though, I just want to say, I'm not sure it's was widely known. I think we haven't kept it a secret, but just for disclosure, Associate Ministries now officially in the last week or two is the fiscal agent or the fiscal sponsor for this homeless coalition. So this homeless coalition has been a has been a very loose band of awesome people, but with the opportunities to receive some grants and some funding to do some special projects, there has to have been an official nonprofit fiscal home that can receive those kinds of funding. And so we've agreed to step up and just offer that fiscal support for the Homeless Coalition. In no way do we control the work of the Homeless Coalition, but we're just providing that kind of that backbone support. And so we're proud to do that. But our other work that we do daily at Associate Ministries, a lot of our time and energy is related to managing a lot of aspects of the coordinated entry system together with other providers in the community. And so that means we do intakes and also the referral process of coordinated entry. Those people that after intake and screening and prioritization reach the top of the priority pool for referrals out to the rapid rehousing agencies and other providers around town. So we're all involved in that aspect. We also have a rapid rehousing program of our own. So our coordinated entry team at Associate Ministries, one of the groups that they make referrals to is their colleagues down the hall in our own rapid rehousing unit within Associated Ministries. And so we do a lot. We house about 150 families a year through our rapid rehousing program. And one unique thing we do at Associate Ministries in our rapid program is we have a contract with the state of Washington to rehouse folks coming out of Western State Hospital who want to live in Pierce County. So it's a brand new program, and it's been really challenging working with this population. So to make sure people who don't have a home, people who are exiting from Western State and who would exit to homelessness, we're grabbing those people and making all kinds of efforts together with the state to make sure they don't hit the streets after coming out of that behavioral health treatment. So that's a new thing we've been working on for the last year. And we're starting to get some really good traction and learning what success looks like for that population. We do the landlord liaison program. We've been doing that for the last 3 years and just found out our contract will be renewed to keep doing that work, which is a really, I think, innovative program where we provide incentives and mitigation funding for private market landlords to move into more willingness to rent to homeless system clients, people with high barriers and evictions. Why, in a tight housing market, why would a private market landlord want to take a risk on a formerly homeless client who has an eviction on their record? Well, we can make it worth their while with this program. So we're out all the time signing up private market landlords and helping them realize the value in taking a risk on the clients that all of us serve every day. And we've got hundreds of landlords now in this program that do take client referrals from all of the community's rapid rehousing agencies. We do this work for every rapid agency in the county, not just our own. And then another unique thing I'll quickly mention is the Community Connection Resource Center. Go onto our website for contact information, but that's just it's a privately funded resource center where we do everything we can to meet gaps for people that will help them find either employment or housing. So if you can start a job, but you got to get your car back on the road and you need a repair or you need your tabs renewed, then we can help with that. If transportation is your barrier to starting a job, we can help make your transportation whole. If you have an application fee, if you're homeless and you just have no resources and you just can't afford the screening fees that are required for rental housing, we can take care of screening fees. If you've been formerly homeless and you get a rapid referral, but you have no furniture, we can take care of the furniture bank referral. We can do IDs so that you can do your background checks. Our experts know how to get people's driver's license and IDs and social security cards replaced in all 50 states. They have extreme experience doing that. We'll get it done for you and take care of the fees as well. So we don't do things that any other program do. So we try not to duplicate funding. So we don't do rental assistance since that resource now exists. We don't do utility assistance since the public utilities departments do offer that with an application. We'll guide people towards that. But we try to reserve our limited funding to meet needs that fill gaps that there is no other way for people in our community to have those needs met. Needs that can be met that will offer them stability towards housing or employment, like paying for a food handler's card, or even paying for a tool or clothing like a steel-toed work boot if that is required to start a job and you can't afford to buy that. Prescription glasses, whatever you might need to reach stability with housing or employment, come to our Community Connections Resource Center. Refer your clients over there and we can help them meet those needs. So anyway, that's probably about as much as I want to say today. We just got a grant, and I think I kind of blurted it out last week, but we haven't even designed the program. We actually just got notice. We haven't even gotten the funds yet, but it's some state CBDG funds there's some extra funds that came through this to provide some COVID related stabilization. So we're going to be combining this this new source of funds that we've got with our existing work to we hope to create a new, more robust eviction prevention and mitigation effort in Pierce County. We're going to combine landlord liaison with our rapid, with our community resource center, and this new funds, which has some legal assistance and tenant education, all kinds of stuff that we hope to have a more robust stabilization hub for clients experiencing homelessness, with some new services and filling some gaps that we see in Pierce County that will create even more stabilization. It'll be a new kind of a prevention effort that'll be a new thing. And then people know us for volunteer income tax assistance during tax time every year. We manage that for the whole county and get millions of dollars of refunds flowing back into Pierce County through our efforts with volunteers to do tax forms. And then we've painted thousands of houses over the last 36 years with Paint Tacoma Beautiful. And then people know that we have a legacy of working with faith communities, and we do our part to try to get faith communities engaged and move them into action, both through volunteerism and policy advocacy. So we're proud of that work too, of engaging and deploying into action that very, very valuable community within our community, the communities of faith, which offer such an untold secret muscle that really energize a lot of our efforts, and we're proud to help with that as well. So I hope that is what you wanted, Rob. That's
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. There is, I see a question from Sherry in the chat, asking about the referral process, if you want to address that.
Okay, let me look.
So the referral process for the resource center.
If you, Sherry, if you have somebody who needs any of the kinds of services I just described today on the call, just have them call the phone number there during our regular office hours and make an appointment to come in.
Got it.
Thank you,
Mike.
Just a simple phone call. It's no paperwork there. I mean, we'll take some information from them when they come in, but we'll walk them through on the phone, handhold.
Perfect. We probably have time for a couple of questions. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, just raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody pop up immediately. If there are questions, do please ask. I see Teresa. As soon as I said that.
Of course.
Just a quick question. With your landlord liaison project, have you done anything, has AM done anything with trying to create a referral, a background check process that several landlords will accept?
You know, I am not sure about that, but I wouldn't be surprised if that may be one of those gaps that we're looking at filling with this new effort, but I can't say for sure. But I'll ask the team and see if I can get back to you on that.
If somebody does that, I would be delighted to spread that through the network to say, support these landlords because they are being compassionate and logical.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. The need that's one of the biggest, barriers is just all the different applications and hoops to jump through from the different. If we could have some centralized, application process, it would be awesome.
Mike, this is Patty with CCS. I sit on the advisory board for LLP, and it is
good
discussed, but And we do have a
difficult.
couple landlords on the advisory board, but I'm sure Tina is well aware of it. And
Oh, yeah.
it is something that we have discussed, but we haven't made progress on, and there's a lot of rules around it. So,
Oh, yeah. All those things. As we know, working in this system, you know, there's one good idea has 10 barriers to overcome to make it happy, no matter how good the idea is.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. And if others have questions, do please put them in the chat. I think Mike will be hanging around. So
I'll be hanging around and looking. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much. All right. So I'm going to break with the agenda for just a moment and see. I don't know if Colin DeForest is able to answer verbally, but I see he's in the meeting. Just want to call attention. He's actually out at the 13th and 13th and Alzheimer area with his camera right now streaming the situation, as you can see from his dash. Doesn't look like he's able to speak up, but he just wanted to share that with the coalition as we're meeting through the rest of the meeting. And if he does have an opportunity to weigh in, I've asked him to go ahead and break in. So just wanted to call that video to our attention. Maureen, would you like to go on with the advocacy updates?
Sure. Thank you. Okay, so at the federal level, the big looming issue is, of course, the federal jobs bill, the Biden administration working on that infrastructure bill. Our ability to impact that is probably minimal, except through Senator Murray and our local elected Kilmer and the other three, Strickland, Smith, and oh my God, I forgot the last person. Anyway, oh, I know, Schreier, who represent Pierce County. And the key is to keep housing as infrastructure. And our national partners will do that. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition, they'll periodically ask for our assistance in reaching out to our own representatives. But that's going to be the important part for this coalition, is how do we keep housing as infrastructure so that we bring more money in, and whether it's one bill, two bills, three bills, whatever it turns out to be. Obviously, the Democrats have to appease Joe Manchin in order to get anything through the Senate. That will require all the Democrats to sign on. So who would have thought West Virginia would have so much power in our world? But the rest of the money is coming in out of the rescue plan is coming, and it's coming to its designated recipients, whether those are state agencies, whether those are local governments, in whatever form it's already designated to come. Now, the State Department of Commerce will hold its first meeting with stakeholders Monday afternoon to talk about the money that was appropriated in the legislative session. And there are a couple of big issues for us. One, especially looking at ending street homelessness by November 1st. And one is that rapid shelter acquisition fund. It's about $125 million there that can be used to acquire existing properties. That's the hotel, motel, apartment building money. Most of the housing that the state of Washington funds through the state's housing trust fund is new development. But this pot is expressly for rapid acquisition. I know that Lehigh Low-Income Housing Institute has a purchase and sale on, I think it's the Comfort Inn, there at the edge of 84th and the edge of where the city and county meet. And I don't know who else does. I know that some other organizations were interested in purchasing hotels. I know that Bridge Housing out of California was interested in purchasing if a local provider would actually do the operations. I know that some organizations have indicated they would like a floor of a hotel for their specific target population. So as soon as we have some information on what the actual parameters are going to be, our biggest problem might be that the Pierce County did not allocate, that there's about 37 million in their contingency fund on the American Rescue Plan money. And they're not intending to review that until mid-August, and that could be too late. So once we have, if a match is required, so once we know what the state is going to require on the on that rapid acquisition money, then depending on what those requirements are, we might need to organize ourselves to educate the Pierce County council members on the importance of whatever it is the county needs to bring forward. And we don't know what that is yet. So but we will. On the city, probably the biggest thing, other than our earlier conversation about the sweeps, and we'll talk about the use of public property ordinance later in the agenda. The other thing that's on the table is the rental housing code update with a couple of key points in there. One is the whole how we're going to look at shared housing, not meaning shared housing services, but meaning housing where people share their living because they're each renting a room in the housing, which obviously includes shared housing services, but is not limited to. And the other part of that is to get nonprofit eligibility to designated to be able to have the first right of refusal on certain properties that come up for sale. Because part of the problem is that you just got to be in the game. On the county side, we've talked already about the ad hoc committee's action plan and providing input on that. And we'll continue to do that, I'm certain. The plan itself now goes to the Pierce County Human Services Committee, which received the report a week ago. They will vote on that at their next meeting, which is May 18th. We expect that will pass. And then on May 25th, their recommendation for adoption should go to the Pierce County Council. And simultaneously, Pierce County Human Services, based on the conversation with the Pierce County Human Services Committee, is moving forward in the recommendations for County Human Services itself. And I see Jeff Rogers on the call, and perhaps he'll speak to that later. I don't think the Pierce County Human Services can actually engage in any hiring until they have all the appropriate approvals, that sort of thing. Issues on the table, one, and I saw James on the call, and maybe he'll speak up now or later, James Pogue, but so the two public housing authorities, Pierce County Housing Authority and the Tacoma Housing Authority, will receive just under 200 ARP, American Rescue Plan, emergency housing vouchers by law targeted to people experiencing homelessness, people at risk for homelessness, people fleeing domestic violence. The law the guidance from HUD, these are HUD vouchers, the guidance requires that the public housing authorities work with the local continuum of care. And the some continuums of care across the county run programs themselves. Others advise. And in our case, the continuum of care up to this point has advised Pierce County, but the actual coordinated entry and that sort of stuff are operated by different organizations, as Mike has just described. I don't know what the continuum of care, I don't know the status of those conversations because I'm not.
I can share a little bit.
Oh, good. I was hoping.
I'm here. I'm turning off my camera because I'm eating a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, the previous way we've done this, there's plenty of systems like this that already exist. Like, for example, the most recent one was the Tacoma Housing Authority had their elementary school housing assistance program. And it comes the same way, like that the COC does the oversight of the coordinated entry system. And that's how we operate these vouchers. They just go into the coordinated entry system and they're divvied out to a provider who operates it. This timeline is very quick. We have already gotten some guidance, and there was something like 120 vouchers to the Tacoma and 70 to Pierce County, or maybe that's backwards. I know that we have a housing subcommittee who attended a webinar, and they're very interested to have a little bit more oversight, and they're going to update the full continuum on Wednesday at our meeting. As of right now, to make sure we don't miss any timelines, we're operating as if the county will take the lead
to put it into the coordinated entry system in case we don't have the bandwidth to meet our deadlines. But on Wednesday, we'll know more. So if you're super interested, just please come to the Continuum of Cares meeting or watch the, the link afterwards. It's at Wednesday at 9.
Great, thank you. And I've put out to the whole listserv, the HUD's holding a series of webinars. You can get as involved or not involved as you want to in this. But the intent is that these vouchers move quickly and are highly targeted. At the Coalition's Housing Committee meeting, our first meeting yesterday, we talked about targeting to 30% and below AMI. And so, so that is the second thing, is that the Coalition's Housing Committee did meet. We'll meet again in 2 weeks on June 3rd at 4 p.m. I'll put the notice out to the whole coalition, but you can sign up for the committee. You can sign or for the Housing Committee listserv if you just go to the coalition's webpage. And over time, I'm going to keep pushing housing information towards that committee and off the listserv. The things that came up in that committee, some folks were more interested in policy and the need for specific types of data in order to inform good policy. Others were interested in actual development, especially small organizations. So it's pretty exciting. And part of what we also asked people who were present was to share information from the other housing groups in which they participate. We're just going to laser focus 0 to 30% housing units. How do we get the units we need, and how do we keep them? The third thing in terms of a watch list are these camping ordinances, which have all sorts of names. Now, and I know of 3 in Pierce County. The city of Auburn has passed one. City of Tacoma is about to, we'll talk about that later. And unincorporated Pierce County has one that does not have council approval. It's an administrative ordinance. There may be others that I just don't know about. But so yeah, that's it. You know how to find me, and it's follow the money.
Thank you very much for that update, Maureen. And if folks have questions for Maureen, please use the chat for those. I want to shift us over to the government updates because I know Clarissa from the city needs to depart shortly. So Clarissa, why don't we start with City of Tacoma updates with you?
Hello, everyone. So the City of Tacoma, I think Kristen briefly mentioned this morning when I came in late that there was 2 encampment cleanups, South 13th and Alzheimer, I think that's how you guys say it, due to recent fires and ongoing issues with parking impacting Bates Technical College, Alzheimer Memorial Church, and Tacoma Library. There's also a cleanup on South 13th and G, and that's due to grind and overlay work as part of the Tacoma Streets Initiative. Also, if anybody would like a heads up on when we post those notices, those 72-hour notices, we can add you to the email chain too. The contracted operator for the hygiene stations has worked with their subcontractor to increase servicing of the facilities at 8th and Yakima. When staff was on site this week, the toilets were accessible and had recently been serviced. Staff is also working with solid waste and the contracted operator to ensure that there is an adequate level of service for garbage disposal at the hygiene station at I-705. There have been some issues with illegal dumping that has impacted the access to containers, but the contractor is addressing these issues as they arise. The updates for current census and outcomes for temporary and emergency shelters are on the website. I'll put the link in the chat. Staff presented on use of the property of South 69th and Proctor as a mitigation site at the study session this week. We will be moving forward with implementing a TEMS-like model at this location, including moving units from East 60th and McKinley and expanding available units. To stay up to date on this project, please visit our website, and I'll put the link inside the chat as well. Also, we would love to work with the coalition on what the design of this site looks like. And so if you guys have any ideas, please feel free to contact Tegan or myself. We'll formally reach out to you guys closer to when that time comes to get your guys' insight on design. But of course, if you have ideas, we'd love to hear them before then. Also, we presented to council again on Tuesday, May 11th for the mitigation site, and I'll put all that stuff in the chat box. Oh, that's my other training I'm supposed to be at. Thanks, guys. Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, any quick questions for Clarissa? You can also use the chat to ask any questions. I know Clarissa has to take off soon though, so. All right, thank you for that report, Clarissa. I will now shift over to, I see Jeff Rogers just lit up from Pierce County Human Services. Jeff?
Yes, good morning. There's a lot going on over here. I'll just share quickly. Maureen referenced the work we're doing based on the council resolution. We are moving forward with hiring additional staff and work. The funding we'll be using for that is part of some of the American Relief funding that we received recently. So we are moving forward in the hopes that the council will have a positive outcome with the council. We can't contract with anybody until they've made that final determination, but we're moving forward with the process because, as you know, government takes time to do things. So other updates we have, the continuum of care. Valerie gave me some notes here, so I'm reading her notes and trying to just ad-lib as I do so. She wanted me to share that the continuum of care funding has been announced. We're in the process right now. We just got the contract from HUD last week. It's $4.1 million. We didn't do a process this year, a competitive process. The federal government decided just to roll over the contracts from last year to this year. It was about a $415,000 increase. I wish it were $415,000 increase over the year before, which is pretty significant for Pierce County. Those increases are programs that have been operational for a while, where HUD has increased the dollars for current programs to be able to sustain their programs. We just were notified by the state Department of Commerce, Office of Homeless Youth, that they're rolling forward all contracts from the last biennium into this biennium. So we'll have the same amount of $940,000 for the next biennium starting in July for youth and young adult homelessness work that we're doing. They've also, in that office there at Commerce, rolled over the state ESG and the state consolidated homeless grant dollars into the next biennium. They didn't go through a process. We've been told the dollars are roughly the same. There'll be some new dollars coming. I believe that the HEN program was one of the programs that was funding was significantly increased. So we could see some money coming for the Housing and Essential Needs program, which is a good thing. But I believe the state won't be implementing those dollars till later in the beginning of the biennium. They won't be rushing those out for July. And our allocation for the last biennium of state ESG, that's the Emergency Solutions Grant Program, is roughly $2.7 million. And then the CHG is roughly 8.8 million, which part of that 8.8 million does include the Housing and Essential Needs program. So all of our funding that we were anticipating is coming. This is just our standard routine funding, nothing big or special due to COVID, just all the normal routine dollars we receive. We're in the process of doing contracts with providers. And what we did, as a result of knowing what HUD was going to do and what the state was going to do, we just renewed all of our funding for one additional year. So we did not go through a competitive process this year. So all the programs we funded before will be funded, and we're currently working with those agencies now to do those contracts. So just a busy season for getting our dollars out the door. The rental assistance update she's provided is that over 12,000 applications have been received. Hundreds of households have been paid, which is a good thing. She says American Rescue Plan funding has been awarded to Pierce County. She says 6 million to date and another 16 million is coming soon. We're also planning to get an allotment of some of those funds that are going to the state passed to us. We just don't know the amount yet. We have data that's on our website about the rental assistance program. And that data is updated weekly. And Valerie indicates here that she will send out a link to the website where you can see the progress of that rental assistance program. That's our update for today.
Thank you, Jeff. And just so you know, your mic was kind of cutting out a little bits here and there. I think we got most of it, but just wanted to let you know in case you have to talk in another meeting coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's see. Next in our government updates, Rihanna Betancourt from the Tacoma Pierce County Health Department let me know earlier that she wouldn't be able to be here this morning. She's actually at Comprehensive Life Resources doing the vaccine clinic, where Kevin's actually at right now as well. So I don't know if we have anybody else from the health department on the call that wanted to say a word or two. Okay, don't hear anybody. Rihanna will share additional information with the coalition mailing list. So if everybody's on the list, they'll see those updates, and we will go from there. She also said that obviously a lot of things changed yesterday with the new CDC guidance around masking and around the governor's updates about Washington State's reopening with a date of June 30th. So there will be more information from the health department in the coming days. All right, so let's shift gears once again, and we're almost on track with our agenda, which is amazing. And I will hand the floor back over to Maureen Howard for a discussion about the City of Tacoma's use of public property ordinance in the meetings we've been having.
So thank you again. So the background to this is that the City Council brought forward in a study session and at the request of Councilmember Toms, an ordinance around the use of public property, which we've been internally referring to as the no camping ban, but we're committed to using its proper name to going forward. The mayor reached out to me and asked what the coalition's response was. The coalition did respond. We drafted something for the city, sent it to the city, and Councilmember Toms reached out to me about an hour after receiving that communication. And that began a series of conversations and meetings, Zoom meetings between 6 members of the coalition and the city attorney, Councilmember Toms, the deputy mayor, and the mayor, and the council staff person, Linda Foster. And we've met weekly over the last, I guess, 4 weeks. And what for me have been incredibly encouraging, an incredibly encouraging example of how advocates for people experiencing homelessness and city policymakers can negotiate to something better than where we began. At every point, I think we felt that the city representatives were accepting what we said as factual. They did not challenge what we said when we asked questions. For instance, specific legal sorts of questions, they answered us. And at one point, Garrett, the deputy mayor, made some amendments to a penalty section of the ordinance. Garrett then made some amendments reflecting what we believed should be in the ordinance, both in the whereas section, which is important because that gives intent, and that is useful in court cases many times, and also the actual code change, because this is a new section to the Tacoma City Code. And then the city attorney came back with changes based on our requests. At one point, we sort of looked at each other and said, well, we got almost everything we asked for. We didn't get everything, but we did get many things. So many that we had a back office legal group, Tristia Bauman from the National Homelessness Law Center, Jennifer Ammons, Northwest Justice, who has a real clear set of parameters that they operate within, Casey Burton from Tacoma Pro Bono, and Laurie Davenport. Laurie's not actually an attorney, but is our conduit. So, so thanks to those folks. And Tristia did come back last night when we had the most current version of the ordinance, congratulating us for doing really good work and making the original ordinance much better. Now, what's in it that's important still? The ordinance is viewed as a tool to, by the city, is viewed as a tool to encourage people to accept shelter by having a criminal penalty if they do not do so. Now, this assumes that, and this is spelled out in the whereases, and as we should have the final copy sometime Tuesday, and I'll put it out on the listserv when we get the final copy. And it includes our language in terms of acceptable, appropriate, accessible shelter, and shelter for everyone, including down to a single person's site. So, and the city makes a commitment to providing enough shelter and enough options for everyone who is currently homeless and into the future, on the assumption that the population grows. This is really important because under Martin v. Boise, we're in the 9th Circuit, and that's federal law for the 9th Circuit. And if there is no shelter available that is appropriate, that is accessible, that is available to people who are experiencing shelter, they cannot be arrested for doing things that normal human beings do, whether that on public property. We're talking public property here. So that's very important. And the city notes that in the whereases, that they understand that this is not an enforceable ordinance until there is in fact enough shelter. Now, the community at large is probably not going to understand that. And there are already community members who are ecstatic that the city is going to have this ordinance, but they don't understand that it's not enforceable until there is actually enough shelter. Now, the marker that we as a coalition laid down for enough shelter that's appropriate, available, accessible is November 1st. Remember, we want all street homelessness ended by November 1st. So just keep that deadline in mind. We are in to some extent in a situation where good people can disagree. There are some of us who don't believe that there should be any criminal penalties for refusing shelter. There are others who believe that this is an important tool. We have moved the city from $1,000 fine and up to 90 days in jail, either or both, for any refusal, to 2 tickets. The first 2 tickets will be civil infractions. They will be $25, no time in jail. The third will be a criminal misdemeanor, up to $250 fine, up to 3 days in jail, either or both. The courts may waive any fines based on the financial inability of the individual to pay. The courts may also expunge any criminal records. That is not an easy process. It's 10 pages of information. But those are important, because if you think about where we started and you think about where we are now, it's really pretty incredible. And it's really testimony to the city folks listening to us. This ordinance remains overly broad. This is not like the old ordinance, which applied to metro parks and not having walls on your tent. This is every single piece of public property, owned or leased, or in which any government, the city of Tacoma, any other jurisdiction, state government, federal government, has an interest, either owns, leases, has an easement, or some kind of interest. It's every government body with the exception of the tribe, all right? So now just think about it, all right? My brother wants to know if he's going to get a ticket for parking his RV in front of my house on a public street to sleep when he comes to visit. The other thing is that we were able to move the ordinance's context from being located literally in the power of the police. That's how it had started, to being located, the rules, the regulations will be drafted and implemented in the city's Office of Equity and Human Rights in conjunction with the Chief of Police. The police will not be the first responders. They will be non-law enforcement. Now, we've distinguished, and the ordinance distinguishes between those crimes which housed or unhoused people commit. That's not what this is about. The law enforcement always has the right to deal with those crimes. We're talking about people who are experiencing homelessness, and because of their homelessness are residing on public property within the city of Tacoma. What else? The city says that we talked about their commitments. The whereases are really pretty incredible. The calendar is basically this, that and I can put the calendar out on the full listserv. Probably I'll wait until Tuesday until we get the final draft. The city intends to do what they call daylighting, to basically present to the city council at the study session on May 18th, because that was the date that had been in the pause. Part of what I neglected to say is that the city was actually moving very quickly to pass this ordinance, and the coalition requested that they either drop the ordinance or at least pause it. And those of you who might remember, it did not get paused in the study session. There were many high-level negotiations, and it was paused just before the city council meeting that evening, when it was supposed to have had its first reading. So part of the agreement is that the sponsors would come back, Councilmember Thompson, by May 18th. And so on May 18th, this is going to be given to the city council. On May 19th, it's the first time the coalition steering committee will meet and have it in hand. And so I've asked for it to be on the agenda on May 21st, depending on what's in the final draft and what the steering committee decides. This could come to the coalition then next Friday for a conversation. On May 25th, that will be the city council's first reading of the ordinance, and there is an opportunity for public comment. The coalition steering committee would meet the next day, normally the 26th, and review those comments, what had happened at the council. Coalition could take any action that we wanted to on as early as the 28th. The council will not meet the following week, but the coalition does. And so we have that week of June 1st, I guess, to have additional conversations, take any actions. And then this will come back to council on, what's the second Tuesday in June? Is that June 2nd? I only copied half of my page. So
June 8th is the second
June 8th.
Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so June 8th, it comes back on June 8th to council, and the council will vote on the ordinance. There will be an opportunity for comment. And the mayor has requested that any or all amendments not be same day as the final vote. So that's a council process thing. So we, depending on if there are amendments, we might need to adjust our statement or any decisions that we would make. Right now, my preliminary take on decisions is one, that we need to acknowledge this process. And I believe we need to acknowledge Councilmember Toms for reaching out and for making himself available. He met with Safe Streets. He would have met with a full coalition if we had asked him, and I'm sure still would, if that's something we want to do in a Friday meeting. And he has listened to what we have said. And just this process itself, the fact that the that the city attorney's office has responded to our requests and has drafted the appropriate language in the ordinance. And so, I mean, I think these things are huge in terms of a group of, like us working with an established city policy side. All right. We could make a decision to support, to endorse the ordinance. I don't know that we would get a majority vote on that. We didn't on the poll last week because of the penalty phase statement in the actual code, the fines and the possibility of a criminal misdemeanor. We could decide not to publicly take a stand, or we could identify all of those items on which we have agreement as a coalition on a Friday morning as our usual form, and cite those and note those on which we do not have agreement. People are not, the only time individuals would have to follow the coalition's decision would be if you are speaking for the coalition. You're speaking as an individual, if you are speaking as a different organization, everybody is free to take their own position. So I want to thank Garrett Nyland, Rob Huff, Teresa Power-Drudas, Jeffrey Boyce, Kevin Glacken-Coley, who were, Kevin had to miss a couple of meetings, but everybody else hung in for every single meeting and came prepared to discuss whatever the items were and to listen, I think, honestly. And the mayor was really, it looked like, you know, things were going to fall apart kind of yesterday. And the mayor just stepped in and said, no, we have come so far. We need to make this happen, knowing that we would not assure the coalition support. So we were clear about that. So it's been pretty extraordinary for me in my career. So anybody want to add anything or any questions?
I see a thumbs up from Teresa.
Yeah, we did mostly behave. I mean, I think people were honest and about, you know, what we knew, what we believed, what we wanted, what we saw, and where we agreed and disagreed even with each other.
Yeah, Garrett.
Sorry, I was sort of multitasking there. Maureen, did you mention that the rulemaking was going to come out of equity
Yes.
and human rights? Okay,
In
I think that's another one of those important shifts where, you know, taking the power of crafting rules for vulnerable communities out of the police and putting it into people that make it their business to understand them.
And I don't have it on my notes, but I think we got stakeholders in also. We actually used the city's 1/10 of 1% affordable housing ordinance as an example of involving stakeholders in the whereases, and sort of fed the city's language back to them. I mean, it's a hard one. The actual, one of the meetings earlier this week I was in, the chief of police of Burien, Chief Bowe, I thought, put it really succinctly in terms of, he said, you know, there are crimes that people commit, whether you're housed or unhoused. And there's a law enforcement response to that. But then there are the fears that people have because of folks who are different from themselves. And a lot of what we're dealing with right now are fears and concerns and worries and frustrations. And why is homelessness so visible in our city right now? And looking for a response.
So thank you, Maureen, for that report out and for the continued work on this. As Teresa mentioned in the chat, the steering committee meetings are posted on the pchomeless.org website. Everyone is welcome to join those. And we will be talking more about this next week at the steering committee after the city council receives the revised version of the preliminary ordinance. I do want to shift gears, unless anybody has just a really burning question. because I see Colin on the call. I want to get to both the Safe Sites for All update, and I know Colin is out in his car at 13th and G area. So Colin, do you want to offer some words?
Yes, hello. Yeah, I'm out here. I'm actually just around the corner right now. So I've been out at the site for most of the morning, kind of just providing outreach, kind of working with the outreach workers to see if, one, to find out what kind of placements the city actually has, and then two, to see if we can get any of these individuals to move along. So I would say it's been pretty successful. We probably have 4 people that are interested. Really, the only option is the stability site. So we had 4 different people that are possibly going to go to the stability site. Of those 4, one of them has been kicked out of the stability site, so probably is not going to be able to get in. There's another 2 that have been kicked out of the stability site, so they're not going to be able to go there. That have large tents that are still remaining on, not too far from Teresa's house, actually, is one of the tents. And then across, as you get behind Bates, there's still probably 6 tents with people that are pretty much refusing to leave at this point. So from what I got, I know that the city was sharing that here's our shelter list. That just isn't true. There's no tiny houses available. There haven't been any tiny houses available. So I'm not exactly sure why it said I think when I read that thing, I thought it said there was like 4 tiny houses. That's not a thing. So really it's the stability site, and I don't know exactly how many sites they have down there. The police were saying 3 or 4, but I don't know. So it was good though. They're rallying around, they're helping move individual stuff, but there's like 2 people out there doing outreach that are kind of trying to help them from the hot team, and there's not really anybody else out there. So yeah, it's definitely in the next couple hours. It's going to be, because the cleanup crew's there. So right now they're cleaning around the people. They're being very respectful, but at some point, rubber's going to hit the road, because there's some big tents that are not moving, and there's probably, in front of Teresa's house, I'd say there's probably 6 vehicles that are not moving because they can't, or they're just not. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with those vehicles. I don't know if there's any questions about that. I can move on and tell you kind of just a quick safe parking update if you want to, if there's not any questions about what's going on out here.
I'm looking here, Garrett or Colin, and I don't see anybody raising their hand yet.
Yeah, I think what we're going to be left with is, the reality is a lot of these people, when we talked to them, they said they're going to go block up the street to Yakima Avenue or a block down to Tacoma Avenue. So it's just a moving and a reset, which is really unfortunate. So yeah, but some of them, what we have out there is multiple people with disabilities or mobility issues. I was just dealing with a lady that looked like she maybe has heat stroke. I'm not sure. So I was able to get her some water, but she couldn't even get up in her tent, and her tent is large. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I'm not confident that some of these people are going to, I just don't know what they're going to do. So I'm going to hang out here for a bit longer, but I'll transition on to just the safe parking. At 12:30, I'm meeting with hot team officers and hopefully someone from Sector 4 at the TUUC site on 56 with, I don't know if Cynthia is going to be there, but I know David Pettit, who's the site host, and a couple others from their leadership are going to meet me on site with law enforcement to basically discuss. I think, as you guys know, that site is kind of paused right now because of a harassing neighbor who is a belligerent drunk. So we're going to see what we can do to have police talk to that neighbor, potentially set up a trespass with that neighbor. And then we had a meeting earlier this week with site or church leadership to try to just explore and brainstorm options. And at the end of the day, one of the challenges with that site, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's right by a couple of bars, and it's a very open lot. There's no real physical fences or anything like that. So there's just a lot of people, I think, that just kind of stumble into the site. Now there's a portable toilet, and I think they've always stumbled into that parking lot and probably done stuff. So we're just really trying to weigh. I'm confident that we can use the site. We just can't have one person there alone because it's not safe. So we're exploring what options that we have to be able to make the site safe. The last thing I would say is our South Hill site is at capacity. There's nobody as I said, at that site in Tacoma right now. So we have some people that are kind of on a wait list. I also wanted to update, and I don't know if Gerald's on the call, and I don't want to say anything that's not going to happen, but Gerald from Rise and myself met last week, and we are discussing potential options to do a couple sites at Gerald's building. So up on MLK, which would be great, even if we were just able to place a couple of people, because I think when we're at the camps, like right here, there's a lot of people up on Hilltop that are in vehicles. So I think if we could get a few to that site, that would be really good. And then I think anybody who's been to Rise knows, like, once you're there, whether you want to or not, you're going to be connected to all kinds of services because there's so many services in the building. So that's kind of my update. Yeah, it's pretty disappointing to see what's going on. I think that the city's doing one thing on one side and it looks pretty good, but this stuff on the other side, I think there's words and then there's actions. And right now, from what I'm seeing from the actions, there's some good stuff. You know, it's nice to see that there is outreach going on from the city, but there's also some other actions that are going on, and we'll see what happens here, but they're not exactly jiving with some of the other stuff. So
thank you for all the updates, Colin, and for being out there this morning. Clearly, this is a example number one that we need more shelter and variety of shelter.
Hey, Robin, just lastly, I'd say, I don't know if Jeffrey updated or not, but Jeffrey and I were also out here yesterday with the TNT, walking around, and gosh, out of everyone we talked to so many people, and everybody's just almost to the last person was asking for the same thing. We just want a parcel of land. We just need a place to go outside, right? Everyone was referencing what they did 4 years ago. Why can't they do that again? We just need a safe place, a parcel of land. We don't care where it is. A majority of them said, we'll go there. We would go there. So once again, it's not rocket science. It's just finding whoever has that parcel of land and whoever is genuinely willing to step up and have this happen. Yeah.
Yep, it's a great illustration of both the need and for a low barrier site, and tangentially the need for some community support once that site is identified. Thank you again, Colin. So we have a couple of items for coalition business that Garrett wanted to cover during this morning's meeting. So I will shift over to you, Garrett.
Thanks, Rob. Are we doing the committees? Is that what we're doing here?
Yes.
Awesome. So we have a request from the city of Tacoma to have somebody represent the coalition on a group called what's it called? Rental Housing Code Stakeholder Group, Work Group. I'm asking Maureen to give me the right name.
I think it is stakeholder, I think.
Stakeholder group.
But I'm not positive.
So this is a group that has a short duration of work, and it's part of a larger engagement effort by the city of Tacoma around some changes to the rental housing code. Maureen mentioned it earlier, and we were hoping to find somebody interested in doing that. The requirements are that you are interested in learning about rental housing code, both the cities and the state codes and how those two intermingle. We don't have anybody that has volunteered as of yet. So if you're interested, now would be a good time to let me know. We're looking at somebody on the steering committee. Did that ask go through? Can't remember whose task that was. So that's a no to you, Rob. I'm remembering.
Yeah, I don't remember.
So somebody was going to hit up maybe CC Mendoza was our goal. Are you on, CC? There you are. We were thinking that would be a great CC engagement opportunity, but that's what happens when you don't come to a steering committee meeting.
You get volunteered.
But is that something that you might be interested in doing? You don't have to say yes, obviously. We just
Not to put you on the spot.
She's like doing something else probably.
Did I just hear my name? What am I doing?
We are
So
looking
it
for
was-
volunteers for the City of Tacoma's rental housing code stakeholder group. So this is a short-term project. They requested a representative from the coalition, and we haven't had any volunteers. The requirement is you're willing to learn about the Tacoma rental housing code and take your knowledge of people experiencing homelessness and kind of apply it to the changes that the city's looking to make.
Okay, I'm in.
That's easy. Do we have other volunteers? I don't have anyone else we're trying to corral in, I don't think, but.
Yay. So by
All right.
acclamation?
Oh, come on. We're going to give her an official vote because that's
Oh,
how
okay.
we roll.
Okay.
Because who doesn't want to do a fun vote like that? So you have two choices, folks.
I'm gonna win this one. I just knew it.
Yeah, I'm back in CC, although I probably should be neutral on this. All right, we're gonna keep moving. I'm sure everybody would be voting, but I'm making them stop too soon. So looks like CC takes it. Awesome.
I won.
Maybe not gonna celebrate when you find out what the actual prize is.
You get a committee appointment and you get a committee appointment.
Thank you.
All
Right
Cece.
on, y'all.
Thank you.
You made my Friday.
Our second is a representative at the, we're only doing two, so this is our second one this week, is our representative at the bi-weekly, that's twice a week, whatever that is, twice weekly shelter meeting. So there's a shelter check-in twice a week that is hosted by Valerie Knight with the county. And we would like to have a formal conduit, not formal, informal, somebody to attend the meetings and listen in and chime in there and at the coalition, sort of pass information back and forth. So you don't have to speak for the coalition, but you're really a conduit of information. We have one volunteer so far for that, and that's Mike Boyster. And we can have more than one person representing. It's always good to have a couple folks. And so anybody else want to take that role? Again, your commitment is to generally attend the shelter meetings when you can and to feed that in and hopefully have someone at the meetings fill you in if you're not there and feed that information that's important from those meetings back to the coalition and to chime in at those meetings when the coalition might be interested in something going on. So other volunteers?
If your job allows it, this is a really good opportunity for frontline folks or for folks out of the community who want to understand more. I see a hand up there, Rob.
Danielle?
Yes, I'll volunteer.
Awesome.
And there's a did you see the chat, Rob?
I did. So yeah, I see there's a request to Judy if she'd like to be able to be there. James also said that he will plans to be attending those meetings. And I should note, Garrett and I frequently attend those meetings as well, but not as coalition representatives.
I think Rob, Judy, if you're there, I'd love Judy to participate. She is our shelter staff coordinator. So currently we're working in partnership with Bethlehem Baptist, but as we grow in shelter operations, she'll oversee staff. So I think it's important for her to participate.
Fantastic.
Danielle, which are you with an organization or?
That's the community services.
Okay, great.
All right, so what I'm going to say is, I think we should put all of those on a slate and we can vote to say yes to one of them or all of them together. I think it's great just as long as somebody is at each one of those meetings and able to report back to the coalition. So does that make sense? So I think we'll have basically 4 representatives here. Are we all okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to do a poll because I'd have to rewrite it to be that way. So we're all just going to say thank you so much. And we look forward to having just a little chunk of our Friday meetings to get an update if there's useful information to pass along. So thanks for doing that. And like Maureen says, this is a great way to take your expertise and use it to help our populations in different ways. And you're doing your regular work or you're volunteering, or it's an amazing way to develop expertise. So yin and the yang, nope, I guess just loveliness all around. So thanks everyone.
Garrett, I see Sherry asked a question about getting the meeting info to her for Judy. So
thank you. I will be communicating with Valerie Knight that we have this set of folks that would like to be included in those meetings. So I will make that happen with those 4 folks. I think I have all your emails, and if not, I know how to track you down.
great. And next on the agenda, Garrett again proposed the idea of creating a homeless Bill of Rights. So you want to briefly mention that?
Sure. So as we were working on the camping ordinance, what are we officially calling it? The use of public property. Use of public property ordinance. What I was noticing was that Jeffrey and Maureen and Kevin and Rob and I were all adding things in to protect the rights of people experiencing homelessness. And as I was doing that, I was thinking, you know, I know communities out there have homelessness bills of rights. And I was thinking it would be good for us to write these things down so that maybe we have something we can all lean on, and even in some magic world, get them to be adopted by governments around us so that they also know what they need to be doing. And none of them are any different than the rights the rest of us have. But like any group that is being mistreated in our society, and I think people experiencing homelessness fit that category. Just like Black Lives Matter, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful if we didn't need to do that? They don't have rights different than everybody else, but they keep getting stepped on. And so we have to make a massive effort to help them assert their rights, as a community assert them. So in that same vein of protecting groups that rights are, I think, stepped on way too much. Stepped on is a light way to phrase some of the things that happen. I was interested in us maybe putting together a homeless Bill of Rights. And so my question to all of you is, not to vote on, but just for a sense of agreement, is that something that you think would be a useful way for us to spend our time? And if so, if you could let me know that you'd like to be involved in that by emailing me or putting something in chat, I will then get a doodle out, and maybe in the next couple of weeks, we can work to put something together that we could eventually bring back to the coalition. And I think we need to decide a bunch of things. Do we want to try to involve the, county government and ording and people like that to, to bring them into an effort and make it a bigger thing? Do we want to just kind of craft something ourselves? Right. So those decisions I would like us all to be making together. So how do we feel about homeless Bill of Rights? That's a no from you, Jeffrey. That's not purposeful no from Jeffrey. Okay, good. I was going to say that's a surprise. Great. And so you all know how to get a hold of me. I'll put my information in again in the chat, but to get a hold of me or just drop it into chat. And no matter what, we'll get that meeting when it gets scheduled out to the full coalition. So even if you fail in saying I want to do it, simply having your eye on the email will give you an opportunity to take part. So awesome. Thanks, everybody. Oh, do I get one more thing? Do I just keep going?
So we do have our closing poll.
Yes, the closing poll. So I took all of the comments you guys made, which filled out some 39 different points that you thought were important, and I simmered those down as best I could into a simple list of 10, and each one is somewhat complicated. So that's because you guys are sophisticated thinkers, and that's life sometimes. So we have, what are our priorities? So this is a multiple choice. I'd like you to pick 3 things that are important to you. And I'm going to read through it while I've got it launched. What are the 3 most important things? And the goal of this is to direct some efforts by the coalition. I'll read them all in a second. Direct efforts of the coalition around this shelter work. Get it going before the county's ready, whatever. So the first thing we talked about was low barrier. So we need, like, what do we need to do to shelter people? We need low barrier sites, right? Places for the 3 Ps. Partners, pets, possessions. They need to be ADA accessible. They need privacy. We need to be able to move between shelters. Those are all things we talked about being important to get going. Second item is a much easier to understand homeless system. Like knowing shelter availability, knowing who to talk to when you need resources, right? So that was something that will make it possible for us to be able to have shelter out there. And having shelter distributed geographically, right? Our third item is having shelter across the county. Our fourth one is having outreach to folks and transportation to shelters and from shelters to resources. Our fourth item is a public campaign push, right? We've got hearts and minds to win, right? We wanted a low barrier site at the 69th and Proctor, and the community pushed back, right? So we need ways to help folks see that that is an important thing in the community. Next item was a real push around safe encampments. So focusing just on what Colin was talking about. Folks said that's what they want, and we've not been able to do it in the community yet. Next item was looking at some affordable housing. So there's a bunch of things that weren't shelter necessarily, but actual permanent housing that can work. And we all know you don't need to go to shelter and then transitional housing and then into permanent housing, right? You can go right from where you are into permanent housing. So single room occupancy, that's what SRO stands for, trailer parks, housing for people that are employed, like some different permanent options. The next item on the list was homeless engagement, right? Talking to people actually experiencing homelessness, right? Polls maybe for what they are valuing or what they need, how to have conversations around it, maybe how we could build communities and not just places to park people. The third one is a huge bucket of some, like the 3 things you need to run shelter: places to put it, funding for it, and providers to operate it. So that should really be 3 items, but my poll can only have 10. So I wrapped them all into one. And the last one is us really understanding the scope of homelessness. So, right, and implementing the Built for Zero, right, where there's a list of everybody that's homeless, you know their needs, and you're working to provide them. So there they all are, folks. And wow, I'm looking at it going so far. Low barriers getting a lot of votes. Wow, this is fun. I like polls.
It's fun to see it live.
And it's 11 o'clock, but I'm going to give us another minute because there's a lot of words on that. I tried to make it short. I really did. I edited.
It's amazing to pull it together during the meeting like this. So.
All right, we're sitting at 80% voted, so I'm going to call that good. And you can shoot other comments later on. And results are definitely a high percentage, 69% identified. We need to really focus on getting low barrier, right? Partners, pets, possessions, ADA. The next on the list was affordable housing, which surprises me. That's what I get for trying to assume everyone thinks like I do. Best way to have shelter is not put people in shelter, but actually put them in permanent housing. And finding property, funding, and providers, which was a massive bucket. So no shocker there on the third most important. And then a public information campaign is fourth. I will definitely be including this in the recording minutes and all that, which will be on the coalition website. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thank you very much, Garrett, for pulling all that together. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. If you do have the time to stay with us, we will be planning for next week's meeting after a short break. Everybody else have a great weekend. Enjoy the sunshine, and we'll see you next week.